the Machine Dvalishvili!
You'll follow them at all times. Touch gloves if you like. Let's fight.
Merab Dvalishvili became another contender for the bantamweight belt after defeating Petr Yan. Why do I say another one? Because in addition to Dvalishvili, there are two more sought-after fighters, Sean O'Malley and Henry Cejudo. As you know, Ojo and Merab are friends, but what if they still decide to enter the octagon? Hello everyone, Fighters Are With You MMA Predictions channel. In this video, I will give a prediction for a potentially high-profile fight between Merab Dvalishvili and Aljamain Sterling. But before starting this video, do not forget to subscribe to the channel and like it so that as many people as possible can see this video. Why I decided to make this video in the first place, it's simple. Fighters are, as they claim, best friends and will never accept a fight with each other. But again, these are just words. Let's remember the friendship of Cody Garbrandt and TJ Dillashaw. They were also friends, but in the end, a misunderstanding between them resulted in the hottest season of the Universal Fighter and subsequently 2 MMA fights. There was a similar story between Khabib and Konoply, only they were not such friends. You could call them good acquaintances. Remember how they wanted to train together, exchange shirts, but after they began to approach the title race, their relationship deteriorated dramatically, and I think you know the full story of this conflict well without me. Also, let's remember the former best friends of Colby and Jorge. Remember how they started. They had practically nothing. One let the other live with him. That's how much they could be said to be bros. But as soon as Masvidal began to approach the tops, conflicts began, which eventually led to a joint fight, in which, as you remember, Covington won. But their clashes did not end there. From time to time, they liked to exchange barbs on Twitter. And now let's talk about the friendship of Merab and Ojo. They have a similar situation as most of the fighters described above. They are in the top. One is the champion. The second occupies the first line of the rating. Dana White has already made it clear to the fighters that such an arrangement, like "I will not fight him, he is my friend," will not work. If they're not stupid, they need to understand that they can literally be forced into the octagon with each other. Maybe they won't have such a conflict and everything will happen solely on mutual respect. But what if the guys don't share something and as a result this can lead to another confrontation between former friends? I think such a headline will look perfect on Signs. So I've introduced you to the background story of why I decided to make this issue. And now let's go directly to the fight itself. I think you will be interested to know which of the two strongest bantamweight fighters will take the belt, Jamaica or Georgia. Right now, we're going to find out. Percussion style. Well, according to the old scheme, we start this analysis with striking technique, where Aljamain will be the first in line. As we know, Sterling is a pronounced wrestler, but his striking technique does not stand still. Those confrontations with Petr Yan only benefited the Funkmaster. I think in training camps he focused on striking, which can later give a positive response. Yes, he tries to spend most of the fight from below, but remember how Aljamain at the beginning of each fight with Yan handled him well with his punches. Yes, most of the punches that he did were blocked, but there were hits that fell right on the face. He can try to crush Merab with his tonnage of punches, press him to the cage and beat him for the rest of the round. He is unlikely to fall into a knockout, but in the eyes of the judges he will look preferable. Moving on to Merab. After the fight with Petr, I have some opinion about his striking skills, which I would like to voice. The blows that he struck in the battle with Jan can be said to be collective farm, so I did not notice such equipment. Hayata was too much concerned with Dvalishvili's translations, and due to this, his hands were lower than usual, which is why the collective farm strikes of the Georgian went right on target. And so it will definitely not be a problem to kill Merab. The main thing is to fight like you fought before. If you worry too much about transfers, then you will get a scenario of a Yan Dvalishvili fight. Let me give you an example of the Dvalishvili-Maurice fight. In that fight, the Brazilian won. was, to put it mildly, all the same for Merab's fight. He understood that he had nothing to lose and immediately went into an exchange with him, which led to a positive result. It is clear that Aljo does not have the same strength as Marlon, but as I said above, he can take this fight due to the tonnage of punches, and therefore I will choose Aljamain as the favorite, who is more developed in the rack than his opponent. Playing from the bottom. Let's move on to the aspect where I'm sure there will be real competition, and this time we'll start with Merab. It was through his struggle that he achieved a lot. It was this aspect that helped him destroy Petr Yan and take the position of the main contender. It was through his wrestling that he made his way to the top, many of which he defeated, all thanks to his wrestling base. Marlon Moraes is a good example of this. If he had not used his wrestling skill, then Moraes would have won in that fight, and the history of this division went according to a completely different scenario. But there is one thing, but with translations, everything is okay. But with retention, he has big problems. Most of the fighters he translated instantly stood up. Petr Yan, Marlon Moraes, John Dodson, absolutely every fighter who was transferred by Merab got up within 5, maximum 10 seconds. Let's move on to Aljo's wrestling base, and here everything is colossally the opposite. Everything is fine with his control. If Sterling is with his opponent on the canvas, then he is unlikely to rise until the end of the round. But like his best friend, he has problems, but not with holding, but with translation. Takedown is much more difficult for him than control. Mainly in his fights he rolls his opponents. That is, he does not transfer them by force, but his agility plays. He just balances his opponent, and the job is done. As for experience, the fighters are a little similar. They have similar opponents in their careers. The most famous are Marlon Moraes and Petr Yan, so they tested their fight against the elite of the division. And the result will not be easy. Both fighters have passed the elite opposition, and it is not easy to determine the favorite just like that. But still, in my opinion, Aljo looked more dominant, and therefore I will choose him as a favorite. Cardio Spirit. Then we have a breather, and we start this time with Aljo, who, alas, does not show himself as a champion. Steadily towards the end he begins to lose ground. It is because of his gaps in stamina that Ian took the endings of both fights. If you are a champion, then you should have an idea that now each of your fights is 25 minutes, but for now, Aljo doesn't want to take it. Let's move on to Dvalishvili's gas tank, and unlike his friend, his cardio is much better. Look at how he fought with Peter. The whole fight dominated in all aspects of the game, and Sterling, in turn, showed the opposite, and therefore Merab deserves the title of favorite this time. As far as spirit is concerned, I'm going to give it an equal, since both fighters are just starting their way to the top, and both will want to take the gold. Forecast. After thinking for a long time, I came to the conclusion that Aljo would still look preferable in this fight, since he has some skills on the canvas, more diverse skills in the standing position, and if he wants, he can easily outplay in any path.